Welcome to this week's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Shari Williams, Chief Risk Officer at SLR Equipment Finance. Thanks for joining me, Shari.
Thank you.
It's great to have you on here, and looking forward to learning more about your career today. So I guess we'll just kind of jump right in. And do you mind just kind of introducing yourself and career to date in equipment finance?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I am currently with SLR Equipment Finance, Chief Risk Officer, as you've already mentioned. I've been here for about a year and a half. I come from most recently a company called Next Year Capital, another independent in the industry focused on middle market equipment finance. Was also their Chief Risk Officer. And so my tenure in the industry is really marked this year by my 30th anniversary. So I do definitely have some interesting tales in that length of time in this wonderful industry that they call equipment finance.
We'll have to dive into some of those because it's a Chief Risk Officer credit. It's okay. Well, let's go into some of that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Do you mind just kind of introducing SLR, Shari?
Yes, absolutely. So SLR Equipment Finance was really born initially out of Nations Equipment Finance, which was founded in about 2010, I believe. And the company was purchased by SLR Investment Corp in 2017. So we fall under a platform of entities, about 8 different ones that all have different niche focuses. So we are an independent. Our parent is publicly traded. And so the independent structure of our organization, it just provides some great flexibility in the industry. It gives us lots of opportunities to look across the platform to, kind of take from others' niches and core competencies and area of expertise. But it's been really sort of a great move for me because it's just sort of broadened my ability to continue to focus on developing kind of forward-thinking risk management ways for independence.
Absolutely. And so you've been there for a year and a half. What's the average tenure of SLR employees?
Actually, quite long, to be honest. Most of them have been around since Nations Equipment Finance. And so there's a really great culture here, very tight-knit group of individuals, where we're actually led by Tom Casey. He's relatively new too, though. And so when he came on board a little bit before I did. So he's probably about 2.5 years into this, let's say. I think he was here a year longer than myself. But he came on board really with the intention to help broaden the focus of what was the legacy business, right? So the legacy business, just to give you a little bit of a background, was focused primarily on what I regard as kind of hard money lending, very collateral centric, and so very structured in some cases. And so while there's certainly a place for those deals, we've really morphed into much more of a cash flow centric organization. So we've really shifted gears a little bit in terms of our credit focus. Collateral is certainly always a key component of what we look to secure our transactions and for underwriting purposes. But we have shifted focus a little bit. And so along with Tom Casey also came a new focus in the world of vendor finance. And so that is very new and different for the legacy business. And so my background actually speaks to both, doing traditional middle market transactions, including structured finance, but also my background has also been in a couple of different institutions, very centered in vendor, not just small ticket vendor, but even mid and large ticket, because as we all know, vendors have varying needs, whether it's to finance some of their small ticket stuff, which is processed, kind of on a scorecard process, or whether it's floor plan financing or other inventory financing or what have you. They certainly move into the large ticket range too. So my background just seemed to be really well suited for what SLR Equipment Finance is trying to do now as far as growing itself in the industry. We really have 3 main business channels. Vendor, the newest. We continue to do direct, which has always been a staple. But again, with that slight shift in focus from being very hard money, collateral centric to cash flow oriented. But then we also do a fair amount in the indirect capital markets. And so I also have extensive experience there. My prior position at Next Year, I was actually managing their third-party operations. So this really allows the risk component of the business to have a full understanding of the three legs to the stool, if you will. And
Sure.
so we are structured in somewhat of a team environment here. We have specialists who focus primarily on the direct and indirect, and then we have others who are more specialized on the vendor side. But at least having a leadership at the helm who understands all business segments, my goal is to really be able to share my experiences, help develop best practices, help cross-train too, because again, we're really only a shop of about 30-ish or so people. We are looking to grow, but nonetheless, we're very much all hands on deck. And so while we do try to stay specialized because there's efficiencies there, it's also important to have our team be cross-trained so that we can be backup for each other. Other perspectives are incredibly helpful sometimes, fresh set of eyes. So there's where I come in and just my diverse background where I can help with that cross-training.
No, and from a salesperson perspective, your direct and indirect channels, it's always good to have someone who's actually been there, so you understand the situation. It's not like
to be honest, it really, I think, is helpful. I feel as though the sales team here would agree with you because my approach is not necessarily your traditional, credit risk oriented stereotypical position. In other words, I'm very pro-business in the sense that my job is to really ensure the integrity of the portfolio first and foremost. But really, at the end of the day, at the end of the year, we all do need to grow our businesses in very, systemic, forward-thinking ways. And so it's really incumbent upon the risk people to play a role in that. And so I encourage my team to be very deal-minded. In other words, we don't look at transactions and immediately focus on just the negatives. Our strategy really is to work with sales, work with originations to determine, first of all, if a deal has merit, and if there's anything about the deal that doesn't work, how can we help get that to work? So I think having a very collaborative environment between risk, underwriting, and sales and originations is vital. And you don't always see that in this industry. It doesn't always happen even in bank environments. There's usually a very definitive line drawn between the two. But I regard ourselves as just new good business people, right? We're looking to try to grow the business in our own way as well, within the parameters and the construct of what we determine to be acceptable credit and risk profiles. And so if that means working directly with our capital markets, our direct team, even our vendor team, of course, how do we make deals work? To me, that's the biggest contribution we make. How do we really look for ways, mitigating circumstances, structures, conditions to make transactions work for our customers and vendors. And so ultimately, we're propelling the business forward together, rather than kind of acting in that traditional way that I think some people regard credit and risk traditionally.
Definitely refreshing. Doesn't sound like it's never a definitive no. It's let's figure this out.
There's definitely some hard and fasts, right? Deal doesn't cash flow. They show up as an OFAC hit. I had a really interesting one the other day. I haven't seen one, on kind of a global sanctions list in a while, but I got one the other day. So there are certain circumstances where there's going to be hard no's for sure. But for the most part, no, I view my role and what I try to mentor and train the team is to really embrace deal structuring, deal massaging in again, in a good way, in a way that helps us build a portfolio that matches our risk profile.
Nope, that's fantastic. That's great. And then from a, you keep hearing all this fraud stuff, and then with the introduction of AI and everything else, are you seeing more of that now than usual?
Well,
Or
interestingly, I mean, I would say no, because we don't, luckily on our side of the business, see a lot of it. Mainly because I believe we've really instituted some great KYC policies, number one. But number two, to answer your question, I did just get those hits recently, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen that many across my desk. And so to have a couple in a matter of a month is unusual. But that aside, for the most part, no, it is a concern for sure. And especially given the world of AI, given the world that is just so technology forward, I think there's lots of ways to manipulate data. And so we're very much on guard for that. But we also, as I mentioned, did institute a pretty robust KYC policy. And for me, even though we're not under kind of the flag of certain regulatory agencies that most banks are, it's still incumbent upon us to follow the best practices. And so for me, again, KYC begins really with originations. We've become much more relationship oriented here at SLR. I think lots of institutions, kind of fall in the habit of being very transactional, especially when trying to grow a business, but not us. We're very relationship oriented. It's very important to start that process of knowing and understanding your customer and their business very early on. So part of what I do is encourage the sales team to get really comfortable with what questions credit and risk is going to ask up front. And so I will actually engage in some quasi training exercises with the originations team if we feel that some of that might be falling a little short. Because the more questions and the more engaging and transparent we can be with the customer up front, the better the whole process is. And that's the best way to minimize fraud as well. And so once we finally get to the financial statements, there's already an abundance of information that hopefully we know about the customer and are still gathering. And so it really does minimize that threat. But again, it's something that I think we all need to be super conscious of moving forward, especially in the world of growing AI.
I love the acronym KYC. Just makes me always think CYA, but maybe one leads to the other. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you really want to think literally about it, having a robust KYC process does actually lead to decent CYA. So, yeah.
Hopefully that doesn't get flagged. I apologize. I just can't help myself.
No. It's all good. It makes logical sense.
So what drove your passion for the credit and risk side of the business?
Right. Yes, because this is such a dynamic aspect of the business. But all kidding aside, it can be. And so I'm really trying to encourage the next generation to embrace this side of the business. It used to be that there were an abundance of training programs and ways to get in at a ground level that just don't exist anymore. So for me, quite honestly, the world of credit and underwriting in the commercial space was open to me through an internship that I was able to achieve at my senior year in college, believe it or not. And so I had a great professor in my class, Money and Banking. I was an economics major, and she was one of my favorite professors. And she came from Wall Street herself and asked me if I would be interested in an internship in the credit department for the Americas at what was then the third largest bank in the world, Fuji Bank. And that was in the World Trade Centers. And this was 1993. I really don't mind dating myself. Actually, 92, 93. And so to me, that was a fabulous opportunity. I mean, really kind of jaw-dropping, right? Third largest bank. Sure. Tower 2 of the World Trade Centers. I mean, this was a commute downtown from Fairfield, Connecticut, but nonetheless, one that I embraced and was really happy that my professor tapped me on the shoulder because she thought and saw something within me that suggested this might be a good fit. And so the benefit I had was was really from this mentorship early on. And so I strive to, again, kind of pay that forward. But really just to kind of wrap up this story in terms of my initial introduction. So it was the credit division for the Americas, and they were working on really interesting deals at the time. They were doing financing for very large ticket transactions, construction for cruise lines, aircraft, really interesting things. And so I had approached my mentor at the time, how does one actually get into this industry? And so she was the one that really pointed out the fact that at the time anyway, there were training programs. GE was pretty famous for having some great training programs. Banks at the time were sponsoring many training programs. So I found a local bank. At the time, it was People's Bank, which then became People's United Bank, and it's now M&T. But I was able to get into their commercial lending training program at really kind of a ground level right after graduation. And that was a year-long formal credit training program. And so one could either choose to stay in credit or choose to move into the origination side and become a commercial lender. And my choice was that I stayed in credit, and really quickly thereafter moved into equipment leasing, kind of finding that the independent environment was just fit my personality. It was very pro-business. It was a faster pace. They treated risk individuals very much like lenders or commercial lenders, in the sense that we had direct access to customers. We were able to go out and see customers. So we were a real partner with the quote unquote salespeople, right? And so I liked that quite a bit. So quickly I transitioned into equipment leasing, and for the most part stayed on the independent side, although have worked for a couple of bank-owned leasing companies since.
No, that's great. I just always curious to see how people get in certain roles, and
yeah, I
it's neat to hear
know.
your story.
Part of why I stay actively involved is because it is unfortunate that a lot of these training programs, a lot of entry-level opportunities have unfortunately faded for the next generation. And so
Sure.
I
Yeah.
think that companies now really have to go out of their way to look for the right candidates who are trainable, who at least have the right initial skill set, but training is an investment. And so now I think we all really have to be prepared to embrace that, because some of this stuff you really just don't learn, whether you're in undergrad studying economics like I did, or even, I went back and earned my MBA in finance. While you can take certain classes that focus on certain elements of what we do, there's nothing better than embracing kind of hands-on training, so you get that real world experience. And so to me, because certain institutions just don't offer those kind of hands-on training programs where you can take your undergrad degree or your graduate degree and then kind of propel it to that next level, or leverage it really to that next level, we now have to look for these candidates and kind of take it on as a personal initiative.
Sure. I mean, you're from the GE side of the world up there. GE had a big presence in the Northeast, and
yeah,
it's amazing how many people I interview on here, and they all started from the GE machine and training program and everything else, and you
yes,
just really
absolutely.
you don't really hear of that anymore.
Right, for sure. And again, I personally did my tour of duty at GE as well. The company that I transitioned to out of People's Bank was a company called Phoenix Core Financial Services, a great middle market leasing company, to be honest. It was a very fun opportunity, learned quite a bit, had a good mentor there too, who helped me develop my credit skills, had a lot of customer interaction. That company was ultimately bought by GE. And then from there, I also gained some experience at GE in their vendor financial services business, because when I was there, they had kind of bifurcated that from equipment finance, or CEF rather. But nonetheless, yes, the Northeast, really hard to get your feet wet without having done some form of tour of duty at GE Capital.
Didn't even know. Wasn't
Yeah.
trying to pry it out of you. Just interesting. It's
Yep.
it's
Yep.
very
No, good,
interesting.
all good stuff.
I'm going to shift gears a little bit, if you don't mind, and talk about, congratulate you again on being a top woman in leasing
Thank
in the
you.
Monitor
I
this
appreciate
year.
that.
So,
Yeah.
congratulations, Sherry. Well deserved.
Thank
And
you.
what was your thought when you got that email from Rita?
I was super excited and surprised, to be quite honest, with you. I mean, in retrospect, I mean, the timing's great, right? It coincides with my 30th anniversary. So that
Hey,
was kind of a neat takeaway from all of this. But I really do feel grateful to, I believe it's a nominating process. So I'm very grateful to either my peers, former colleagues, whomever, that I developed relationships with or experiences with that did I guess, support that nominating process. What I'm most happy about, again, is that the individuals who were kind enough to make some statements in there, Tom Casey, Amanda Sapienza, I mean, they're people that I thoroughly enjoy working with. And so again, I'm mostly proud of the relationships that I've built that allowed me to get that recognition. Because to me, what really makes us for a successful career on any side of this business is really having those positive relationships. So I think it speaks mostly to that. I attribute a lot of what I've been able to do in this industry and a lot of what I can share in this industry to the relationships that I have formed and developed over the years. So for me, I hope that people feel it's as much of a testament to them and how they've contributed, as it was just to my experiences. So I feel, it sounds a little bit corny, but I feel like, again, it was a team effort to get that
sure,
nomination to happen and that
sure.
recognition to occur. And so I'm just super grateful that there were a lot of people involved that helped propel me to that.
Nope, and congratulations again. And like I said, well deserved. And it's not like it's one of those things where you can nominate yourself for it. So it's
Yeah, no, it's a great compliment.
yeah.
Right, exactly. I mean, just a really great compliment. It is very humbling, but again, I feel as though it's more of a team effort, and so I'm just
Sure,
really
sure.
happy that I've either impacted some people's experiences, enough where they felt that it was, worthy of speaking up. So that's really how I see my career going forward too, even in these. Even in this new phase, even in this new leadership phase, right? I mean, it's not necessarily a newish phase, but nonetheless, this stage, let's call it, of my career, as much as it is about growing healthy portfolios, it's also about growing a healthy work culture. It's about growing and training that next generation. And so I value my time, doing things like, I don't know if you're aware, it may be in that article, but I'm part of the committee for the Equipment Leasing Foundation for their academic outreach. To me,
Okay.
again, I mean, it speaks to everything we've spoken to thus far in this conversation. But if we don't look for creative ways to encourage that next generation, our industry could easily shrink. And
Sure.
so in order for us to stay competitive, to stay on equal footing in terms of the sophistication level, in terms of growth, whether we're comparing ourselves to commercial banking or the PE world or to hedge funds or other specialty finance, we really need to remain competitive. And so I like doing things now that I have the ability. I like looking for opportunities to kind of share those experiences. So whether it's the academic outreach, or I serve on a couple of boards at Fairfield University because I remain very closely tied to the university. That's my alma mater for undergrad and graduate. I'm on their alumni board of directors, but I'm also on their advisory board for the Dolan Business School. And again, that's more about looking for ways to engage with students, to introduce them to new opportunities or just opportunities they haven't thought of, right, in certain aspects of the finance world. And so for me, serving on an advisory council like that is just helpful in that when kids are in college, whether it's undergrad, whether it's graduate school, equipment leasing doesn't necessarily, rise up and become,
Sure.
oh, hey, I'm going to go apply directly for companies operating in that space, right?
Yeah.
And so, they think of the JP Morgan Chases, they think of the Apollos, right? They think of all the well-known established Wall Street brand names. And so for me, I actually find it fun and challenging, as silly as that sounds, to make sure that equipment leasing is on the radar screen. We do equally challenging transactions, and we have equally challenging and rewarding opportunities. But it's just not as well known. Even on the banking side of things, there isn't that kind of astute awareness that secured lending or structured finance or equipment finance is something that can be a real viable channel for a career. So for me, now that I've kind of just, again, moved a little bit farther in my career, I like being able to leverage my experiences to share these opportunities with people who just hadn't thought about it before, so that we can keep this industry growing in a positive way.
That's fantastic. I didn't know you were on that committee. I've done a handful of guest lectures, and
Yeah.
every time I get the slides, I just kind of look at them and I'm like, and well, the last one that we did at ASU, Kelly and Ralph were actually in the room.
Oh,
So
wow.
I told the kids, I'm like, nothing like giving a presentation that you don't follow the slides and the people that created it are sitting there in the corner, but I'll do my best.
Yeah,
But I just try to make it relatable to how this industry
exactly.
has given me, my life and lifestyle.
Yep.
And it's a different approach, but it's like, look, these are all the careers you can do. These are
Well,
every
right.
single thing you can do.
That's it. Exactly. I've been on that committee for about a year, where we're actually in the process of, kind of looking for new and different ways to continue to promote and outreach, really, with students, both, undergrad and graduate. And that's it. It's about introducing them to the industry in general, because there are opportunities, whether you are on the credit and risk side, that falls under accounting, that could fall under finance. I know what's close and dear to your heart is the IT side of things. And that's hugely integral in terms of propelling this industry forward, right? I mean, our industry used to be thought of as a dinosaur when it came to IT.
Hey!
And
People are
just
still allergic to technology in
right.
equipment finance. We'll just leave it
Exactly,
at
exactly. And so again, I mean, a perfect topic, because if we don't thoroughly embrace technology and having, for example, streamlined workflows, automation, how can AI work for us? We're
that.
going to be left behind. And so for me, these are all fantastic opportunities for the next generation to get involved, because while we may be emerging in some of these, there's still great opportunities. And so a lot of this next generation just needs to be introduced to the fact that we exist. And so whether it's the accounting side of things, or, as I said, the risk already, your world more IT focused, there's also marketing, there is originations, there's lots of different aspects that I just don't think people are necessarily aware of. So, so those of us who have been around for a while, I think it's incumbent upon us to just sort of promote the awareness. And so I genuinely enjoy doing that.
Perfect. Well, now that I know that, when I'm doing some of these guest lectures on the East Coast, I'm going to invite you to them for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Feel free, for sure. Certainly feel free, and really just kind of even kind of wrapping up the ELFA topic. I've really been involved with them, attending conferences, for the better part of my career, right? But I really became most actively involved when I joined the Women's Leadership Forum, which I just want to take this minute to advocate for too, because it really is a great organization. I think there may be a waiting list, to be honest with you, to get on that. But for anybody who does show some interest, that is a fantastic group within the ELFA to become associated with. It's just a great opportunity to meet peers, meet other leaders, people who are genuinely interested, like myself, in having and creating and contributing to a well-rounded environment in the industry, great cultures in the industry, and really just thinking of the best ways to propel the industry forward. So I just wanted to give them a shout out too, because they were great. While I was able to serve on that, my time expired, unfortunately. But for anyone who's thinking about becoming involved, that's certainly a great way to get your feet wet in the door.
Oh, that's fantastic. Were you just in Nashville a few weeks ago?
I wasn't.
Okay.
I wasn't, fortunately. We've been so engaged here in an IT forward project that my time has really been focused a lot on that. And so separating myself from the office has been a little challenging. But SLR is also really in the middle of really embracing kind of the future of our industry too. And so we're actively in the trenches of putting in a new system so that we can streamline and automate and just create the best user and customer experiences as possible. So whether it's for our internal folks, because we do have a great team of employees who should have the best experience possible working here, or whether it's for our vendors who we're just bringing on and we're creating a portal for them, or again, just our existing customer base of direct customers and even indirect customers. It's important that we deliver timely answers. It's important that we have efficient processes. And so thankfully, we do have this relationship forward environment, and embracing the IT side of that is just all part of it.
Sure. No, absolutely. And
Yeah.
kudos to you guys for making that investment.
Yeah.
Not a lot of organizations do. A lot of people just talk about it.
Right.
It's good to see you guys doing it.
Right. Well, it is admittedly a challenging project and it's incredibly time consuming. And so when you're trying to grow a business and when you're trying to get in new markets, on top of changing literally the way you process your business, even if it's for the better, it's extremely time consuming, but it's really all well worth it in the end. And so that's what I've been championing, just the outcome. There is definitely a light at the end of this tunnel.
Perfect. What advice would you have to a young man or a young woman getting into equipment finance, Shari?
Well, I would definitely recommend for anyone newish to the industry who is just getting involved to seek out resources like the ELFA, getting involved with peers, and even finding mentors, whether they're within your own organization or even outside of your own organization in the industry, I think is really important, not just for your own personal satisfaction, but for your own personal growth. And then you obviously contribute even more to your organization. So it's really for personal and even business growth reasons to get involved as early on as possible. You'll find committees like the Women's Leadership Forum or Emerging Talent, for example. You'll find ways to really stay engaged in the industry. And for me, the reason why I've been able to stay in this industry for so many years is because I've looked for ways to be engaged. Even in remote environments, right? I think there's this tendency for people to become, unfortunately, disengaged. And so we need to proactively look for ways to ensure that doesn't happen. And so to broaden your perspective of the industry, to remain connected, to feel connected, my strong advice is to literally get connected. Look for relationships, look for ways to be involved. Look for new ways to learn about the industry. And so I always direct new team members, even when I'm speaking on campus. I do events like Career Night, for example. I will encourage kids, go look online, see what the ELFA, for example, is all about. Get an understanding of our industry. You may enter the industry wanting to be a salesperson, but then you may recognize that your skill set is better suited for, say, credit underwriting, for example.
Sure.
There's ways to maneuver within the industry too. So get exposed to it is my advice. Don't just stay siloed in the one path that you think might work for you, but get to know all of them because they all can be rewarding in some way or another. And some may genuinely fit your personality better. For me, my family actually happens to be more or less in the industry, right? My father was in the industry for a very long period of time in equipment leasing. My husband was in equipment leasing for a very long time. And he's on the origination side. So
Okay.
I more than get both sides of the business from that perspective. But my point is, his personality fits that track. My personality fits this track. But it's really all about getting the exposure so that you feel comfortable and you can contribute to your fullest.
Sure. And you sit there and it's like, what deal did you approve?
We do that all the
Why?
time, right?
Why?
Now,
Why?
my favorite is when my husband comes home and says, "You risk people."
What is wrong with you? That's fantastic.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. But yeah, it makes for some good dinner conversation.
Sure, sure, absolutely.
Yep.
I did not. I learned that as well. That's
Like,
fantastic.
we can chalk that up to a fun fact about me.
Sure, sure. Well, speaking of it, that's where I was going to go next. So, I always ask everyone who comes on here to give me a little fun fact about themselves, other than the fact that, you got some strong roots in the industry. What else makes Shari tick outside of equipment finance?
Yeah. So, again, my personal hobbies are being involved with, trying to be involved in sort of that, however I can volunteer way, right? I very much enjoy being on the alumni board of directors at Fairfield University.
Sure.
They're doing some wonderful things there. And so I'm able to, that allows me to contribute in lots of ways in terms of the growth of that university and institution. And so I do spend a lot of time there. I actually have a son in undergraduate there too,
Okay.
where we're going to a basketball game this coming Sunday. The girls are doing phenomenal, by the way. So
Okay.
anyone who's a college basketball fan, I encourage you to look up the Fairfield University women's team.
What's their mascot?
The stags. So we're a deer. Fear the deer.
Deer. Okay. Fear the deer. Okay.
Fear the
Okay.
deer. Exactly. But again, I do have one kid who is an undergrad at Fairfield University. I have another daughter who is at Lynn University in Boca Raton. And then she has a twin brother who is at Berklee College of Music in Boston. So my kids are scattered, spotted, kind of dotted, I should say, throughout
So does the Boca
Eastern
child
Seaboard.
send photos of right now when you guys are at 10 degrees?
So thankfully, the Boca child was a little forward thinking and knows that ultimately mom and dad would love to be in Florida. And so she
I see
was
what they did there.
basically like, I'm just going to get there first. No, so we do have the pleasure and the luxury of visiting her on that side. But my husband and I also did just buy some property in Venice on the Gulf side. So I do like to spend my free time there. I love the water. I love the beach much more than Connecticut weather. So right now, today's conditions are gray, gloomy, and about 25 degrees. I'm a beach girl at heart.
Hey, next month makes 14 years of me being in Arizona from Jersey, New York.
See? Yes. So like mine,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. It's like, wait, what? No, I don't want to go back there. So,
Yeah.
however, I always make bad decisions and find myself to be in like Buffalo in like January, where it's like, yeah, you got like 4 months to be in Buffalo. Don't pick one of the other 8.
Right. But you bring up another interesting point too, which is, again, the reason why I really enjoy this industry is that there's opportunities to do things like travel, right? Whether it's seeing customers, whether it's going to some really beneficial, trade opportunities, like some of the conferences that are sponsored in our industry, or again, some of the training opportunities. I have recommended several individuals, kind of seek out their CLFP. And so again, our industry has a lot to offer, even from that perspective. If you're going, some other environments, may look attractive, right, at larger institutions or more traditional institutions. But I don't know that they all kind of offer some of the opportunities that our industry can. So it's one more way to think of our industry in a positive way, because there are those opportunities. It's really just incumbent on individuals to kind of seek them out and express their interest, right?
Nope, 100% same
Yeah.
page, Shari. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I guess my closing question to you is, why should a organization or individual want to do business with SLR Equipment Finance?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. You know, we are a very forward-thinking organization. We are trying very much to be, as I mentioned, relationship-oriented. That is the main driver of even our culture these days. And so the customer experience is something that we're very much striving to excel at. And so whether it's on the origination side, where we do have engaged originators, again, I mentioned that KYC process really starts with them. You know, we think of it as customer engagement. This is help me understand about your business, help me understand your business needs. Let's think of our salespeople more as financial advisors in terms of how are we offering the best suited products to our customers. And that's why I encourage even the credit and risk team to be actively engaged with the originations team, because it's about building that right transaction, or building that right set of products to ensure that we're giving our customers really what they need. That they may come in thinking they want one thing, and yet we've got a host of options for them that might actually be better suited. And so for me, I think, again, the business is very collaborative in that way. It's very forward thinking. It's very customer centric. Really right from originations through underwriting, through the documentation experience, we're trying to drive the customer experience and lead the industry in that regard. In fact, a little fun fact, I guess, about SLR Equipment Finance. I don't know if this is public, so maybe this is breaking news, but I believe that we were nominated by the Monitor as the best culture environment in the industry. And so that was multiple team members here recommending our business as a standout. And so whether you're looking to join us or whether you're looking to do business with us, we're trying to just excel in what that overall experience is.
Perfect. Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I've been working with you guys for a little bit now, and you guys have a great team, and excited for the future of SLR, Shari.
Yeah, me too. I am. And thank you for this opportunity. It's been a great time chatting with you.
No, it's great to have you on here, and hopefully our paths cross somewhere in the near future. But
yes.
I will not be in the Northeast for at least a couple more months.
No worries. Perhaps I'll catch you in a warmer climate.
All right. Sounds great, Shari. You have a good day. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.